Let's talk big story this time. Now, this focuses on one of the most disruptive moments in Nigeria's oil industry in 2025, and dare I say dramatic as well. Last week, billionaire businessman Aliko Dangote made serious public allegations against the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, accusing some leaders of incompetence and misconduct that he says have deepened fuel scarcity and worsened price volatility. Now, this is unlike what we've seen Dangote do from before. This went, most people would say, personal. The fallout was swift. Top executives at NMDPRA and the Nigeria Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission resigned amidst mounting pressures.
Now, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu accepted the leadership changes and named replacements, while the Senate has now confirmed new CEOs for both the agencies. Critics say the episode exposes somewhat deeper structural problems in Nigeria's oil sector, and supporters argue that the shakeup was overdue. And so to help us to unpack what this means for markets, policies, and everyday Nigerians, we're going to speak to two experts, one in energy data and then the other in public policy. First, let's bring in our analyst, our second guest, Ikenna Okonkwo, who is a data integrity lead at SBM Intelligence. Ikenna, I want to say thank you so much for joining us this morning, and a very good morning to you.
Judith, and good morning, Zeno. I think I got your name right.
Yeah, Zeno's fine.
Right. He actually likes when they call him Zeno.
It's all right.
Let's start with the basics, shall we? And let's just set the tone for this discussion. So much has happened this week when it comes to both agencies, their resignation, a new appointment, and also the allegations. All happened within a span of 5 days. I do have to ask. It all happened so swiftly, but let's start from the basics. What specifically were the allegations that was levied against Engineer Farouk Ahmed by Dangote? What was the main accusations against the regulatory authorities?
I think if we look beyond the accusation of corruption against Ahmed Farouk, I think the key dispute between Dangote and his refinery and the NMDPRA has to do with the issuance of import licenses. So Dangote has always claimed that the NMDPRA has a statutory duty to encourage local refineries. On the other hand, NMDPRA are also looking at the point of view of they do not want a monopoly and they want to ensure supply, especially during the festive season where the demand for petroleum products increases. Now, Dangote has always claimed that his refinery will be able to guarantee supply. But the NMDPRA has had its worries, especially given certain things. For example, the Dangote's refinery is a single train refinery. Now, what does that mean? A single train refinery basically means that it has just one process. It's just the refining process is a single process where the crude oil goes through the refining process. So it's just a single train. And that is a problem because if there is an issue with any part of that system, the whole thing has to shut down. Now, in December, Dangote refinery announced maintenance of its RFCC unit. Now, the RFCC unit is a unit that refines the heavy oil aspect of crude oil. And that refining process, I don't want to go into the technical details, but that refining process of the heavy oils ensures that you get the maximum amount of petroleum products from crude. So this maintenance of this RFCC unit is going to last from December into January next year. So NMDPRA is saying, look, in order to ensure supply, we're going to open up import licenses. And that has been a major source of dispute between Dangote and NMDPRA. With Farouk Ahmed, we remember that Dangote's issues with him had started a year ago in July 2024, where Farouk said that the diesel that Dangote that was coming out of the refinery was of low quality. And Dangote had to, I remember he had to bring in the press, and he did a live test, and it showed that his diesel was at a quality that was suitable for Nigerian use. So this, I would say that this escalation, because this is an escalation, was Dangote deciding to take the gloves off. And he took the gloves off in a way that I would say he understands Nigerians in a sense. He understands that we typically tend to listen when we hear allegations like this. And I guess that was why he came up with those, with the allegations and came up with those numbers. We can't really say how true or how false it is. But I think as Nigerians, I think we should focus on the facts of the
Ikenna, I think I understand what you're saying. I think I understand what you're saying. Nigerians like drama. It's only when we hear drama, that's when we pay attention. So Dangote had to come down that low. But then again, is Dangote a saint? Is he the savior? Let's remember, he's a businessman. He shook the entire sector with those allegations. He caused resignations. Now, the question is, how can one man have so much power to be able to shake an entire sector? And what is the end game for Dangote? Is he the savior that he is positioning himself to be? How does this affect long-term governance of the oil sector in Nigeria from here on?
I think the thing to realize is that Dangote is a businessman. And what is most important to him is his profits, his margins. And in everything that he's doing, he is trying to guarantee the market for his refinery. NMPDRA and I would say the Nigerian government and the Nigerian regulator, their primary mandate is to ensure supply. And I would add that for the Nigerian, who we can say is an observer, but we have a stake in this, for the Nigerian, I think our primary obligation or our primary interest should be, first of all, petroleum supply. We do not want to be in fuel queues this Christmas, and also at the optimal price, because that is what affects us, the price of petroleum. And we shouldn't take any sides. I don't think the Nigerian public should take any sides, or should be on the side of our pockets. And like I said, this, at the bottom of the dispute between Dangote and the regulators, is a dispute on supply, pricing, and who gets to supply petroleum or petroleum products to Nigerians.
Talking about, pricing and supply and distribution, I mean, from your data, and you're looking at Dangote, mind you, there are plans for Dangote. Also, I hear that the refinery might be going public in 2026, next year. And so there's so much that is hindering on this refinery in terms of Nigeria's commonwealth, right? But away from that, one has to look at, the data. From your data, from your analysis, on the data that is on petroleum supply, pricing, distribution, and support, do you see, the idea that a mismanagement that has now played that at a regulatory body like the upstream and downstream sector, do you see that it has affected, and do you think that with this change, we're going to see a headway, so to speak, in pricing, supply, and distribution?
I don't think the change in leadership is going to change much. So the NMDPRA releases a fact sheet every month talking about the state of petroleum supply, petroleum product supply in the country. And in November, I think one of the key results that it brought out in November is that the supply for November for petrol, PMS, was 71.5 million liters a day. Of that 75 million liters a day, 19.5 million liters was supplied by local refineries. And the majority of local supply is from Dangote refinery. So 19.5 million liters were supplied a day on average, was supplied by local refineries, specifically Dangote refinery, in November. The demand for petroleum products in Nigeria for November was 56 million liters a day. So it is very, very clear that Dangote refinery alone is unable to meet Nigerian demand. And the demand for November, the demand for petrol for November was an increase from October, and we believe that is also going to increase in December, especially as Christmas comes and people travel. So I don't think the leadership is going to change the underlying issues. Now, Dangote always claims that his refinery has storage. So, for example, he claims that at this point in December, as his RFCC unit is closing, he has 1.5 billion liters in storage. And 1.5 billion liters will supply the country for, I would say, about 20 to 30 days. So he says he can guarantee supply for 20 to 30 days. But NMDPRA are saying that, look, we're going to grant import licenses to cover for that supply. So I don't think the change in leadership is going to change much in the way NMDPRA has been running things, and especially in its dealings with Dangote refinery. What I feel will just happen is that, okay, Dangote has knocked off an enemy. Mm-hmm. He has knocked that enemy off the board.
Off the chessboard, very interesting. But I'm still very concerned about his visible impact inside of the sector now. Standing so big and tall, everybody's looking at Dangote as that savior I mentioned from before. But who stands to gain more? Is this going to affect the common man positively? And how does it affect the regulatory framework that we currently have? Is it going to break it down? Is it going to cause a restructuring?
I do not think that the current allegations and the current issues would lead to a serious change in regulation. A lot of what is happening is based off the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act, which created the NMDPRA. And the NMDPRA, well, both of them, the NMDPRA and Dangote on one hand and on the other hand, have always claimed, have always used the PIA to justify some of their actions. According to Dangote, the PIA guarantees or supports local refining, while for the NMDPRA, the PIA kicks against monopoly. So most of NMDPRA's arguments have been against monopoly. And if we look at the refining sector in Nigeria, it is clear that for local refining, Dangote has a monopoly. Mm. Now, will that be a good thing for the country? It is going to be very, very difficult to say. We can already look at other sectors where Dangote has a monopoly. We can look at cement and cement prices currently. It is clear that Nigerians buy cement at a higher rate than foreign cement. So the question is, will it get to that point if Dangote secures a monopoly on petroleum products in Nigeria? Remember, there was a 15% tariff that was proposed and withdrawn by the government. And that 15% tariff on imported petroleum products was ostensibly to protect local refining. And a lot of all these things point to the accusation that people have made against Dangote, that Dangote tends to stay in industries where he's guaranteed some sort of monopoly, especially by regulation. And personally, I don't think that it's a good thing for the country. Monopolies do not help the economy, do not help the common man. What typically helps the common man is where there is competition that allows for the best price for a product, which is what favors us as Nigerians.
And Ikenna, that's exactly what I'm saying. You just hit all the buzzwords there. You mentioned monopoly, and then you also brought in the instance of Dangote cement and how actually Nigerians are paying more for cement. And I'm wondering if this is not the same thing we're seeing here, where Dangote is actually trying to get that monopoly, and down the road, it might not be to the benefit of the, average Nigerian when it comes to fuel. And the NMDPRA, where does it fall in regulating such a monopoly here now?
But when we're saying monopoly, right, but there's no other refineries as well, right? So a monopoly will be a case where, there are other competitors, but he seems to have controlled the market. But there's no other competitors, right? And one might say cement is a lot more different in terms of BOA, there's BOA, there used to be Unisem and the rest, right? And we have an abundance of limestone, which is a key ingredient in cement. And so for the case of the refinery, it's a much more peculiar case. I think that's my own argument here. And so would you now say that it's a protectionist approach by the president or by this administration to protect the refinery, or is it truly indeed monopoly, given there are really no competitors at this point?
I guess for the Nigerian government, the challenge would be to balance supporting local refining and also ensuring supply at the optimal price. And I think in the long term, I believe that what would help would be the emergence of competitive refineries in the country that would meet the gap. Remember, I pointed out that there is a almost 30 to 40 million liter per day gap that Dangote's refinery is not meeting at the moment. Yes, Dangote has plans to further increase the capacity of the refinery by building another train. So that would end his dependence on a single train refinery. So there are plans to do that, but that won't happen in 2028. What would actually be good for the country would be the emergence of other refineries of a similar size. I guess there are plans for some of them in other parts of the country, but that is what would ensure that, okay, it's not just one giant refinery that has a monopoly on refining. And there's also the fact that even if we're able to cover local demand, we can also export to our neighboring West African countries or around the world. So these are things that the country can look forward to. And I would say the government and through the regulations should encourage, should strike that balance and encourage local producers, but also to ensure that the Nigerian doesn't suffer under the lack of or the unavailability of petroleum products.
I do have to also come back to those allegations that was levied against Engineer Farouk Ahmed by Alhaji Aliko Dangote. Very heavy allegations. And now that he's resigned and both upstream and downstream bosses have now resigned, we've now seen new appointments and confirmations. Does it end there, right? Because someone brought to my attention that these allegations actually sprung up about 6 to 7 months ago and somewhat died, right? And there's been constant and worrying concerns about accountability and transparency when it comes to the finances of the entirety of our oil sector. Do you think that this will just stop at a resignation? Do you think that the ICPC and other craft agencies will go in and probe this situation? And if he's found guilty on these allegations, the right punishments will be meted out?
Well, this question can be answered if we look at precedents. What has happened in the past, especially when you already have the person resigning. So if he has resigned, the typical thing, and this is what I expect will happen, is that, okay, yes, a report has been made to ICPC, but now that he has resigned and is out of the picture, it is likely that it will die down. It will die down because that's typically what happens in corruption cases like this. It will die down unless there is somebody who is out to follow through. And given how much bad blood has flowed between the two of them, it is likely that he could get that far. But we shall see.
Only time will tell.
Let me bring in a lighter bit to the conversation here. I don't know if you agree with me, but if you look at the situation, Dangote is responsible for most of the traffic jam we're having in Lagos in December at this point. Why? Because of
Not the IJGBs?
Because no. There are no IJGBs. It's because of the selective application of the distribution. You find certain fueling stations actually applying this reduced rate, and you find motorists all thronging to these fueling stations. And that's at the end of it. Take a look the next time you're in a traffic jam. There's always a fueling station applying that new price that's causing that traffic. And
really?
Yes, Judith. Yeah, you haven't seen it?
No.
Ikenna, next time you're going to go look for fuel.
Typically MRS stations. If you
There you
if you
go.
have an MRS station.
Yeah, there's a MRS right across from me, but that's not the cause of traffic in my end.
Trust me, but take a critical look at it. You will find that this is actually what's happening. Now, I'm wondering the broader implication of that. If distributors start selecting where to apply these, how it affects states, how it affects regions. Are we going to see any drastic change in consumer behavior or maybe stability of the product? What do you think, Ikenna?
Like I said, Dangote is a businessman. It is unlikely that the reduced price is going to continue for a long time because this is he was able to reduce the price because in November, anticipating the shutdown of his RFCC units, he ramped up production and built a stockpile or a reserve of, like I said, 1.5 billion liters. And in doing that, he was able to reduce the price in order to price out imported petroleum products. So the question is, how long can that last? How long can you hold on for? Because this is something that he's going to be doing to a large extent at a loss or not at the profit that he would want. And like I said, Dangote is a businessman. He is interested in his margins. So I would love to see how long this would last, but I do not think it will last past the end of this year.
Really?
Well, hey.
I thought you would say like the first quarter of 2026, but hey,
Listen,
what do I know?
Judith, let me tell you something. He just said it. He's a businessman.
Yeah, he's a capitalist.
Everything was planned, including the allegations at this time when sentiments are high regarding Christmas and prices and lowering
That
prices.
is such heavy
We'll get people
conspiracy,
on your side.
This is so heavy conspiracy.
I'm more interested in the drama at this point. Ikenna, thank you very much for joining us for Breakfast Extra to discuss this. It's a very heavy topic that everybody's talking about, and you've shed more light on it with your expertise. Thank you very much, Ikenna.
Thank you, Ikenna Okonkwo. He is the data lead there at SBM Intelligence.